It is now time for Diary of a Wrestling Fan with Bill Chase. And now here he is, the man who once turned down Madonna for a date, probably the only man to do so, Bill Chase. Thank you, Mr. Podcast Announcer, and welcome to another edition of Diary of a Wrestling Fan. I am Bill Chase, the podcast that chronicles my 33 amazing years of being a fan of the wonder that is professional wrestling. Thank you for listening on Spotify, on Anchor, wherever podcasts are streamed. Follow, subscribe, do what you got to do in whatever podcast format you're listening on. And if you're listening to this on YouTube, hit that subscribe button right now. This week, part 2 of the wonderful world of tape trading. But before we get into that, of course, a quick shout out to Pro Wrestling Ontario. Follow us on social media. We are on Twitter. We are on Instagram. Give us a like on Facebook. And yes, we are on YouTube. Once again, you happen to be listening to this on YouTube, scroll above the video. There is a link to the Pro Wrestling Ontario channel. And click on that after you listen to the podcast. Hit subscribe and check out our great content. We got both Iron Cup tournaments, which were both spectacular. We got the backstage shenanigans of Foundation and much, much more. Check it out. That's Pro Wrestling Ontario. All right. Well, my podcast last week on tape trading, part 1, was a monster success. I was a little surprised because I didn't know if that was a topic that many of my listeners would be interested in. I honestly wasn't sure. It was a risk. I wanted to talk about it, and we'll see how it did. And I was looking at the part 2, easy for me to say, regardless of if it was a success or not, because I promised part 2. So here it is. So, of course, in part 1, listen to it in the archives if you haven't yet. But either way, just a quick synopsis. I met a friend of mine named Mark, who's a few years older than I am, at a mall randomly. And he just started giving me tapes. That pretty much sums up. That's how I got into the territories. He gave me so many great compilations of Mid-South, Mid-Atlantic, Memphis, Portland, you name it, Japan. A lot of great matches from Japan. And I even forgot to mention a couple from Mexico. So there you go. So here we are with part 2 of Tape Trading Memories. Now, where I left off, of course, Mark was in a little bit of hot water. Apparently, someone blew the whistle on him when it came to copyright laws. Now, to be clear, at least I don't know. Mark, I don't see his bank statements. I didn't pry into his life. I don't know if he sold these for profit or not. I don't think he did. So, therefore, to anyone. So, therefore, I just believe that someone, I guess he even said it was someone that he had bad happenings with in the past. So, I'm just assuming this person got upset at him for something and just decided to be a dick. This was happening back in the late 90s, folks, long before people do that every day on social media. But anyway, so around the year 2000 or so, I'm still in contact with Mark. It's not like I stopped talking to him just because he stopped giving me tapes. He felt really bad he couldn't do it. And he had to throw everything in storage. He told me he was going to lay low for a while. Plus, he had some relationship issues that went really bad. He kind of became a hermit, but I still heard from him here and there. And around the year 2000 or so, I started hearing from him a little more. Again, I think he was breaking out of his depression. He was suffering from bad depression. And again, I'm only saying this because he has shared this publicly on his own in the past. So that's the reason I'm telling the story now. And he won't have, I guarantee he won't have a problem with it. So don't worry, folks. But anyway, yes, he did have to, I won't go into specifics as to why. But at the same time, he was breaking out of his funk. And he never stopped watching wrestling. He was always watching wrestling. But he actually messaged me the one day on MSN. Now, okay, I remember before I said I didn't have the internet? When I met Mark, well, by the year 2000 we did. I think it was around just after The Rock won the Rumble. So yeah, January, February 2000. We got a free trial. We qualified for somehow, I forget how, for a free trial of America Online. And we did. I think my parents realized how good the internet can be. And we subscribed full time after the free trial expired, and yeah, we're off and running. So the internet, this is where I started first finding the dirt sheets. It maybe took me a week to find the dirt sheets because all I did was type in Yahoo, before Google that is, typed in a wrestling news site. Because I was just trying to, I was curious. I'd heard about the dirt sheets, obviously, and I checked stuff out, and I thought, oh, well, it's like a holy grail. Why was I wrong? I mean, sometimes they were informative, and there's part of me even today that wishes I never found those dirt sheets, but then again, might not have led me to do the things I love here locally. So there you go. And now I'm looking at these tape trading sites too. I found these tape trading sites, but the thing is that it's a little more risky with, again, my parents didn't know I was getting all these tapes. So, and I saw John McAdam's site, and man, did he have some great stuff. Again, John McAdam, the host of the Stick to Wrestling podcast. Check it out, folks. One of the best wrestling podcasts out there, very underrated. Part of Brian Lass, Jim Cornette's co-host and producer of the Arcadian Vanguard Network. So check it out. Anyway, I digress. So he tells me on MSN the one day, he's like, I'm thinking I'm starting to make some tapes again. I got some good material that I just got my hands on. I'm like, dude, I am all for that. Like, if you're going to make tapes again, send them this way. Like, I missed watching all these insane compilations. Mind you, it did, having the internet did allow me to thoroughly search for these independent companies. It helped me learn more about independent wrestling and whatnot. ECW, of course, I knew about, obviously. I even knew about XPW a little bit, and I think it's even on TV maybe once or twice. So as he's making these compilations again, he gives me a couple. He gives me one of XPW and a compilation by a fellow by the name of Scott Keith. Scott is a blog writer. He's actually had a couple books published. He was part of the famous, again, I'm probably making an obscure reference here, the RSPW boards back in the early 90s, the mid 90s and whatnot. He used to do this Smark rants are called, very snarky, very smart markish, if you will. He's still around today. Still reviews pay-per-views and that. Scott's a very entertaining writer, even if you don't agree with everything he says. And he has this blog of doom. So there you go, Scott. Very much, very clever in a lot of ways. So, again, this is what discovered me to Scott Keith. You know what I mean? It brought me to his writings, which I thought were very amusing. Again, even if I didn't agree with everything he said, especially his ignorant assessments of the Undertaker. But anyway, I digress. Once again, so XPW is the compilation he gives me, and I pop it in. Now, I like ECW, even at this point when they're on TNN, even though that TNN show is not universally popular. But at the same time, I've seen enough of ECW to know that I loved it. I loved that product, and I didn't think it was perfect. But what product is perfect, really? I mean, there's something that's close enough to it, but at the same time, not everything's going to be a winner. It's like plot lines on a TV show. You're not going to like every one of them, even if it's your favorite show. Anyway, I pop in the XPW. So I said, I'm watching the XPW tape, and all I'm thinking the whole time is, wow, this is fucking trash. Like, this is awful. Despite the fact that it had some former ECW guys there and some guys who I knew about, I'm thinking this is just not fun. I'm not enjoying this. You think me, again, I'm only 17 here at the time. You think this would be my thing. But then again, learning what I've learned about XPW over the years, and if indeed it's true, and there have been 2 or 3 wrestlers who have said to me it is true, well, then that just makes it all the more make sense. It was pretty much run by people in the porn industry, and very shady people at that, and I'll just leave it at that. So, was not a fan of XPW. However, I will admit that there were other XPW compilations I watched after this one that were a little better, that had some good stuff. I even had the famous New Jack Vic Grimes incident from XPW. Mind you, I also had their incident from ECW as well, which was just completely fucked up. Again, watch New Jack's Dark Side of the Ring special to learn more about that. Now, people said, the one bit of feedback I gotten from the tape trading episode, which was 99% positive, they did say, you weren't getting any rare stuff, really. No, I wasn't, but I didn't care. It was rarer then than it is now. I mean, now you got the network and even YouTube, but stuff that you just couldn't find in your typical video store. So in a way, it was rare. And again, it's not rare now. Keeping in mind, folks, I'm talking about something that happened 20 years ago. It's not as if I could go to my local Blockbuster and find a Best of Mid-South compilation. You know what I mean? It was pretty much 99.9% WWF and WCW with the odd ECW tape here and there. So then I am happy when I pop in Net Cop Bust. Now, Mark said to me, this is a compilation of some of the stuff that's so bad it's good. I'm like, okay. I do enjoy stuff that's so bad it's good. I like a lot of B movies. We used to have this television station called the Drive-In Network, which played nothing but terrible B movies, and a lot of them were pretty good. Enjoyable, entertaining. So anyway, I remember it had the compilation. I remember it kicked off with the compilation of the mini movies, WCW mini movies. Now, I talk about Jake Roberts' run in WCW in 1992 on here on the podcast. Check that episode out. It's in the archives. And it was ridiculous, as I've made it sound before. Then, of course, there was the White Castle affair for Super Brawl 3. Now, the Sting and Vader feud was one of the best WCW had in their, I guess, dark days, you'd call them. Because it had a lot of emotion behind it, a lot of great stories behind their matches. And it just proves sometimes the bad guy wins. But Sting never look bad in losing Vader, because Vader was a freaking shit kicker. So, yes, the White Castle of Fear and Cheatham, the evil little person. I'll be politically correct on that one. Yelling, play the game. Oh, God. So, the White Castle of Fear, Harley Race constantly cackling, probably laughing at the pay he's getting for this ridiculous piece of shit. But again, it is so bad, it's good. And yeah. The match, though, off topic, that match is a banger. Strap match with Sting and Vader at Super Brawl 3. That show is a banger. That show was off the charts. WCW had some really good pay-per-views in these dark days. Then we had the Beach Blast 93 one. That's, of course, where the bomb is planted on the boat to try to kill Davey Boy and Sting. I can't make that up. Psycho Sid, or Sid Vicious wearing flip-flops, still cracks me up to this day. I remember there was some stuff. There was that diaper match with Razor Ramon and 123 Kid. Match itself was really good. And I guess why this was included on here was because the diaper thing was silly. I mean, I remember watching this. I was almost 13 years old. And I went like, I remember when I first watching it, I'm like, oh, that's, it's kind of funny. But then after seeing it a second or third time, it's like, oh, this is kind of lame. That feud already had people invested in it. Kid had actually major heat when he betrayed Razor. And Razor, of course, had been one of the most popular guys on the roster for a few years at this point now, even though he'd be off to WCW shortly after. But still, the diaper stuff was lame, but I didn't think it was one of the worst moments in wrestling. Like, lame, but not bad. I'd say it's lame, but not bad. I've seen worse. I can probably think of 10 things worse. That's another podcast for another day. Then, of course, there was, they include the stuff with the athletes. Stuff with the athletes. Reggie White wrestling Mongo. And Mongo's become famous again due to a Twitter page of his wrestling. I thought Mongo, at least character-wise, was fine. But I'm not going to remember Reggie White. And God bless poor Reggie. Reggie White was one of my favorite football. He was one of my favorite football players growing up. God rest his soul. And he tried. He did. But really, this match should not have happened. And they had the stuff with Rodman back in '97, and yeah, it was not great, but I don't think it was all that terrible. Then they had the fake Razor and Diesel introduction. That was pure shit. I talked about that on my new YouTube show, folks. Check it out here. If you're listening on the YouTube channel, First Time Wrestling, myself and my friend Julia do a Royal Rumble 1997 match watch along. So yeah, fake Razor and fake Diesel. They had the Billionaire Ted skits. Okay, this is an unpopular viewpoint. I like the Billionaire Ted skits. Not all of them were great. Some of them were even kind of bad, but a good chunk of them were actually pretty funny. I still think so to this day. I mean, I'm probably in the minority on that one, but I think it's just looked bad in hindsight because WWF started losing the Monday Night War a few months later. I think that's more the stigma of these skits than anything. But that being said, however, the guy who played Ted Turner was funny. The stuff with the Nacho Man and Huckster got kind of old real quick, but the guy again, I thought the guy who played Ted Turner in these sketches was really funny. And of course, we had of course the Shockmaster. They had Oz, Johnny B. Bad. I you know what? To a point, Mero got over with that, so I don't know. I don't think that was really that bad. But they had stuff with the Taker in '94. His loss to Yoko and the return. It happened, and we let it happen. Anyway, this whole episode should be about this tape, so that's the kind of stuff that it included. I think the monster sumo truck thing with Hogan and the Giant, if I recall correctly, there's something involving them. Outback Jack, stuff like that. Sergeant Slaughter using the atomic noogie. And there was the earthquake squashing Jake Snake, Renegade, the debut of Rockabilly. There was some good stuff here. Austin being squashed by Jim Duggan, the Chamber of Horrors. Oh, that's a whole other thing for another day. Discovering a Chamber of Horrors. And I might even just do a whole thing on this this tape. There's RoboCop, the Giant versus Loch Ness, which I don't want to criticize too harshly because, like they said on the Reliving the War podcast, Loch Ness apparently was sick and he just didn't know it yet. So, and he was a big star in England back in his day, so whatever. The next tapes I got was later in the year 2000. Some more XPW stuff, some ECW stuff. So that was relatively easy to get. But then he sent me this tape label, because I remember sometimes you just send me a bunch without telling me what they are. There was stuff from AAA in Mexico, stuff from CMLL he sent me. But the tape that I didn't know anything about, because I knew about these promotions and whatnot, I'd seen stuff from them before. It said IWA Mid-South CM Punk. And I'm looking at it, and I'm like, I've heard of CM Punk through message boards and whatnot on the internet. So I'm like, okay, we'll check it out. It was basically a compilation of stuff from CM Punk in IWA Mid-South, one of the promotions he became a pretty big star with, one of the indie promotions he became a big star with, but long before Ring of Honor. Well, not long before, but still, Ring of Honor at this point had yet to exist. So I'm watching this, and I'm thinking, this guy's great. The Phantom microphone promo was on here. A couple matches with Chris Hero. There was stuff with him and this talent by the name of Colt Cabana. And so this was around late 2000. I'm trying to think, what was the other match? I think him and Suicide Kid, maybe? I don't know. But yeah, and then I remember seeing, I asked, after seeing the CM Punk tape, either late 2000 or 2001. Oh, wait, I think it was more early 2001. But late 2000, yeah, because late 2000 I watched a few Punk matches, and early 2001 is when I saw most of the promos, and yeah, the stuff with Colt. Yeah, that's right. And I'm thinking, I said to Mark, you got to send me more of this guy's stuff. He's like, you like him, eh? I'm like, dude, he's great. I'm like, why is this guy not signed? This is where Punk became one of my favorite wrestlers. And then I'm fast forwarding a bit on focusing on Punk, but again, he sent me all the IWA stuff over the next year or two, and let me tell you, I'm like, this guy, if I don't see him in WWE, that's a crime. And check out my CM Punk episode in the archives during the Summer of Punk 2011. But anyway, yeah, so he sent me all this stuff with Punk. Later, I see stuff with him and AJ, him and Eddie Guerrero. So yeah, it was some amazing stuff. So he's also sending me some more territory stuff at this time too. He was sending me a lot of stuff with AWA, their ESPN show, which say what you want about it, but at least it had some highlights. More GWS, the Global Wrestling Federation. This stuff was really interesting. Oh my God, was it ever. But again, it was some like really rare gems on there with like Barry the Winner Horowitz. I remember reading an article in I think it was one of the After mags about Barry Horowitz actually winning titles in other companies. They would say the headline would be Barry Horowitz is a winner now. And he would call himself Barry the Winner Horowitz. And I remember seeing it was an Indy match with him. He grabs the mic and he says to the announcer, "It's Barry the Winner Horowitz." And he'd do the pat in the back. The crowd would boom. It was great stuff. And Barry is a great worker. I got to say, he is fantastic. I got some more stuff from Florida. I always knew Dusty was a big star. I did. But as soon as I'd seen his stuff with Crockett, even his stuff in WWF, where I thought he was a star there too. Again, say we will about the run. He came off as a star to me. I didn't truly realize how iconic he was until I saw his stuff in Florida. I mean, the promos alone made me want to hop in a damn time machine and go to these matches that he was building up. I also got the stuff with Lex Luger, very early in his run. His match at Battle of the Belts with Ric Flair, and you could see even then, Luger had star potential up the wazoo. And of course, I got the Lex Luger Bruiser Brody match. Yeah, that was something. I remember hearing the story about it. So the Luger Brody match was something to truly behold. Check it out if you haven't seen it yet. And there's conflicting stories about what happened. So as time went on, again, I'm getting more stuff with Punk. More stuff with him and like BJ Whitmer. Stuff with, it wasn't just IWA stuff anymore. So yeah, Mark is making these compilations, mainly of the indies, but I still look fondly on stuff that isn't so rare, but it was in compilation form. Like I had the whole, Bret the Hart Foundation run where Bret turned heel. But I wanted the Macho Man Ric Flair feud from 1992. I always liked that feud. So I asked him, can you make me a compilation of the Macho Man Ric Flair feud? You know what he says to me? Bill, I thought you had a challenge for me. And then I said, the other feud I wanted with a compilation was Sting and Ric Flair. He said, ooh, okay. He's like, okay. That one was a few volumes, but he made it for me. He had everything Sting and Flair had done from 1988 all the way to the last episode of Monday Nitro. I'm like, wow, he did a great job. He made me the Macho Man Ric Flair one. That was great. I had one, I think it was Brett Nolan. Brett Nolan was another one I asked him to make me. And he did a great job of it. And then he tells me, he's like, there's this Ring of Honor. Have you heard of it? This is when, again, I'm in about 2002 here. I said, yeah, I've seen some stuff online. Keep in mind, you could download videos. There's even a couple sites where you could watch things here and there, whatever. But there was no YouTube yet. There was no, like, streaming sites. Stuff took, like, about an hour and a half to download if you're downloading a video file. even with good internet. So he tells me about Ring of Honor. And it was one of their earliest shows. It was the Night of Appreciation. I think it's one of their first 5 shows. And the one that blew me away was Loki and AJ Styles. It was really my first discovering of AJ Styles. And then there was Eddie Guerrero in Amazing Red against Jose and Joel Maximo. That was a lot of fun, but again, I just kept going back to the Loki AJ Styles match. Oh, and the Christopher Daniels Donovan Morgan match. But watching Loki and Styles do the things they do, like, and I've seen some exciting stuff. And then I said to Mark, you gotta find me more of this AJ Styles stuff. Because over time I saw matches with him and Punk that were great. I saw matches stuff with him and Xavier. It was just unbelievable. And then I was getting introduced to a lot of these guys that I'd heard about, but the write-ups never did these guys justice. Paul London and a fellow by the name of the American Dragon having an epic match in one of the earliest ROH shows. And I'm thinking to myself, this American Dragon guy is a great wrestler. Paul London's very exciting. Of course, I'm sure a lot of you know by now who the American Dragon is. But if you don't know, it's Daniel Bryan Danielson. And ROH was really good at putting legends, so even legends that couldn't really do much anymore, in positions that still made them look good. I always appreciated that about Ring of Honor in their early days as well. But I thought ROH was the best thing since sliced bread. To hell with ECW. No, I'm just kidding. I still love ECW. But ECW at this point had been gone for well over a year. But speaking of which, he actually made me a compilation of early ECW stuff. That famous 3-way dance. The Sabu, Terry Funk, and Shane Douglas. Phenomenal match. It was one of the earliest 3-way dances ever done in wrestling. Showing further how ECW was very groundbreaking. And again, even the production was even more, for lack of a better term, indie back then than it would become in later years. But still, ECW never lost their charm that way. I don't care what anyone says. He gave me some more stuff from Portland wrestling with Raven as Scotty the Body. Raven was one of my favorites. Him as Scotty the Body. In Portland, I thought that stuff was amazing. The feud with him and Steve Dahl. There was some really good stuff there. I always knew Raven was a great performer. Oh man, even very early in his career, he had some great stuff. Literally a month before he came into the company, John Cena. Yes, I was seeing matches with him as Prototype from Ohio Valley Wrestling. Ohio Valley Wrestling had a nice little product going there. I've seen him. I've seen Batista. I've seen a lot of the guys that graduated from that promotion, the Bashams. And then he sends me something I'll never forget as long as I live. Women's Extreme Wrestling. Check out Brian Zane of Wrestling with Regret and his whole assessment of the WEW stuff, because I really can't put it into words at all. It may very well be the worst thing I've ever fucking watched. I am not kidding. It was bad. Although there was one performer who stood out. Her name was Alexis Lurie. We know her today as Mickie James. I was all like, okay, most of these girls suck. She's good. So I asked him, Alexis Lurie, and I remember, okay, I did see a couple of her stuff in Ring of Honor, but I didn't really see her wrestle. I saw her on Ring of Honor tapes that he had given me. I'd never really seen her wrestle. So he says to me, oh, I can find you a bunch of her stuff. I said, I have a bunch of her stuff here. I said, dude, make me a compilation of her stuff. Not only, like, and again, keep in mind, folks, okay, I don't want anybody to get offended. I am only still in my late teens at this point. I thought she was a good wrestler, and I thought she was hot. Best of both worlds. Mix me up a tape of her stuff. And he did. And I'm thinking she had really good hustle. Like, even, and I'll say this too, even if the match wasn't necessarily the greatest or even all that good, they're always trying. If she was playing a heel, she was always trying to get the crowd to hate her, trying to go that extra mile to get them to hate her. She was always, again, as a babyface, she fought the underdog role really well. So yeah, it was some good stuff from Mickie James. As you're seeing a theme here, I'm discovering a lot of people who have become my favorite wrestlers over time. So as years go on, again, I'm not giving like a too thorough timeline here, but obviously I'll just tell you this right now. Mark was sending me tapes till about, I'd say, 2008. And another great wrestler I discovered was a guy by the name of Claudio Castagnoli. You know him as Cesaro. Which is with him and Bryan Danielson, Daniel Bryan. The four-way with him and Bryan and Nigel McGuinness and Tyler Black, who we know today as Seth Rollins. Again, these were the guys that were the future. And I was seeing them long before they were stars on WWE television. And I just had a feeling these guys are going to be the guys dominating television for the next 10 to 15 years. So I remember because I saw that four-way. I think I saw that in, I want to say, late 2008. By that point, I wasn't getting much from Mark. But he was recommending stuff to me. I'd seen the stuff with Bryan and Castagnoli. I want to say they had a match at IWA, maybe. But yeah, it was just amazing. And then Samoa Joe was another one. Now, Necro Butcher, okay, I've seen some CZW stuff, and I've seen some Necro Butcher stuff, I've seen some deathmatch stuff over this time. I thought it was good for what it was. I'm not what you call an anti-deathmatch guy that way. But sometimes if I watch too much of it, I get bored. So I usually try to watch it in small doses, and it would be more entertaining. And then seeing the Samoa Joe Necro Butcher match, which actually I didn't get from Mark. I got it from a friend of his. And it was truly something to behold. Necro Butcher still maintained that character, but yet it was somewhat different in a way. It was different enough where it stood out above anything else he had done. And that match has to be seen to be believed, let me tell you. The stuff with Joe and Punk, their series of matches, I marked out for in a huge way. So I was always intrigued by the Indies, but I truly became a fan of the Indies. And again, in the last episode of Tape Trading, I was talking about becoming a fan of the territories. This made me a diehard fan of the Indies. I was starting to get PWG stuff. This was so unique. Again, it was similar, but it was different. It's really hard to put into words. And the famous AJ Styles Samoa Joe match I had. Some amazing stuff with Frankie Kazarian. Again, Punk. Homicide. This is where I really became a big fan of Homicide. Because I had seen a couple of his matches that he'd done, I think, in the Northeast. And I thought, okay, I want to see a little more of this guy, but I always forgot to ask Mark. And I marked out for it. Like, this guy is exciting. Because I later had the strip club match with him and Punk. He made me a compilation of Punk stuff from FIP down in Florida. And then there's Punk and Super Dragon, which I thought was awesome. Crap. It's starting to come back to me a bit. There was, I think, Davey Richards and Roderick Strong. Or no, sorry. It was Davey Richards and Super Dragon, I think, versus Jack Evans and Roderick Strong. That's right. Yeah, it was the tag title match, I believe. So, like, it's clunky because some of the stuff that Mark put together with PWG wasn't in order, really, unless it was a story arc. Because I remember Roderick Strong and Davey Richards having some great stuff in ROH. It was these tapes and compilations that helped me discover local independent wrestling here in Ontario as the years went on. You know, Mark wasn't making me tapes. I was still seeking out stuff, and it was easier to find at this point, somewhat anyway. I was finding some awesome stuff from the Northeast. I was finding some stuff, again, more PWG and ROH stuff. Stuff with Punk and Raven. Okay, sorry, I gotta go on about this. Raven, again, one of my all-time favorites. Punk, one of my new favorites. The feud these two had, I have stuff with them in ROH and stuff they did in England even. Again, unbelievable that these two personalities who I was just in love with. I was in love with their personalities. I will say that. I don't care. Was just tremendous. And again, I would mark out for this stuff. Oh my God, I can't believe I almost forgot this. Here's a gem that now would be worth a look, a little even more now that these two have become big stars. Bryan Danielson and Kenny Omega. Yeah. And even stuff with Danielson and Austin Aries. Oh, and the stuff with Danielson and El Generico. And there was a match with Danielson and Necro Butcher, which was very unique as well. Again, when Necro Butcher would face these guys that were a little, like, again, Necro Butcher's comfort zone, and this is not a criticism, so don't anybody get out of shape, is death matches. Hardcore wrestling, that's his forte. Hi, Mike. Anyway, but yeah, like, he would somehow, again, still be him, but things would change a little. Like I mentioned with the match with Samoa Joe. Yeah. There you go. That's my foray into independent wrestling. It happened because of tape trading. And I have to say this too. The whole point of this podcast is to show what shaped my fandom, why I became such a big fan of professional wrestling. And the reason for that, I want to do this podcast, was because of the little things that made me proud to be a fan. I got joy out of watching these tapes. I got joy out of learning about the territories. I got joy of watching these indie guys be indie-rific, a term that's been thrown around a bit. And people know that I've been a fan of Jim Cornette in the past. There's still things he says that makes a point. And again, I'm probably going to take flack for that, but whatever. I don't agree with everything Jimmy says. As a matter of fact, his assessment of guys such as Kenny Omega, I don't agree with at all. I think he gives them a little too much of a hard time, to be honest. I think some of his criticisms of them are unfounded, but then again, I often think some of his criticisms of them mainly just keep working the angle he's working on his podcast, it seems, of hating this stuff. I don't know. But all I know is that indie wrestling has opened a whole other door. And I have Mark to thank for this. Introducing me to the territories gave me a whole new appreciation of wrestling. That led to him making me tapes of the indies in the 2000s with ROH emerging. So with IWA, PWG. To the point where after he stopped making tapes in general, like he didn't just stop for me, he stopped in general just because I think he just lost his passion for it. And he's not the biggest wrestler. Like he still watches wrestling, but he's not the biggest fan that he used to be. He likes the older stuff still. He loves the older stuff as well, but it's not, he doesn't have the same enthusiasm he once had for it. But that's okay. It happens. And watching these indie matches led me to being more interested in the indie circuit, which led me to start attending shows, which led me to be involved in a local independent scene any way I could lend a hand. To the point where I'm running a company with 2 business partners now. That's PWO, Pro Wrestling Ontario, who I mentioned at the top of the show. Yes, that's where the cheap plugs come from, folks. Most of you probably know. So it's nothing, like not some big bombshell I'm dropping here. But the way the tape trading helped my fandom evolve is what led me to some amazing things I've gotten to do in the last 7 years. And I have to give Mark, once again, a big thank you for that. Because if it wasn't for him, again, who knows? Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's about going to do it for us here. This week, once again, here on Diary of a Wrestling Fan. Next week, I'm actually going to talk about what was initially, anyway, would be for at least about 13 and a half years, the final episode of Saturday night's main event. It aired on Fox on November 14th, 1992. So again, still a very unique time for the WWF at that point. Big things happening. Things are about to change. Oh yeah. It was a memorable episode, and I'm going to talk about it right here next week. So, until then, this is Bill Chase, once again, putting my fellow Hamiltonian, the late great Billy Red Lyons, when I tell y'all, don't you dare miss it. Thank you for listening to Diary of a Wrestling Fan with Bill Chase. If you'd like to make a contribution to the show, just vote for Doc Richards in the Bubbles Satellite Contest and make sure he wins first prize.